Hi guys, my name is Desi Kadra and welcome to my podcast, Bridging the Realm.
Today we will be speaking about death, grief, and the afterlife. As some of you may know, recently I've launched a fundraiser for a documentary that I'm working on called Beyond the Veil, which is about exploring life after death, how we deal with death, and life after death. So I just want to speak a little bit about the idea behind the actual theme in the documentary. And it's something that I've seen, it's something that I've explored for such a long time. And it's just one of those topics that if people manage to allow themselves to really understand life after death and tap into that spiritual side of reality, it makes such a world of difference to how we deal with death, to how we grieve, and also how we even prepare for death. So it's something that I'm really passionate about, and I really hope that people can also share some of their stories today and also from today onwards. My guest today has very kindly offered to share his experience of learning how to deal with grief and just getting to know the spiritual side of reality. So I'm really, really happy to present to you David Oliver. He is a psychic medium, and he also works as a counsellor for Reach Out. He has been doing Reiki for a few years, and I'm really interested in getting to know his side of the story and how he came about to deal with his grief, with dealing with death of a loved one, and just really opening this whole discussion up with everyone who is probably going through this right now or has gone through it and doesn't really know how to deal with the pain of the loss of someone who's passed away from your own family. It's a huge topic, and it's really something that hasn't been discussed enough because we tend to, in our Western society, we do tend to push it out. We tend to push it in the back of our minds, and I think that it's time we kind of open this discussion up and try to change our perspective on death and how we deal with death, because currently the way we deal with death is very, very traumatizing for everyone who's dealing with it, for everyone who's preparing for it, or anyone who has experienced a loss in any sort of way. So David, thank you so much for wanting to be part of this discussion today. Could you just tell me a little bit more about how you got into this? And well, actually, first, how are you? Sorry to throw you straight in the deep end.
I'm good, thank you. Well, what you're saying about the way that people deal with people passing away was quite it's a prevalent situation. Basically, my mum passed away when I was 18, nearly half my life ago. I'm 36 now. And for about 6 months after she passed away, I just felt the only way I can describe it is numb, like I was in a bubble. I wasn't really depressed where I didn't want to carry on my life, but I wasn't enthusiastic or energetic about things. And if I didn't have to be working or busy, I'd just spend a lot of my time sleeping. It was kind of like my escape from things. And then about 6 months after she passed away, I found a shop that offered Reiki. And the people there suggested that I should try it because obviously they wanted the person there to be busy. I knew nothing about it, but I agreed to try it because I thought, why not? So I went into the room, lay on the bench, lay back and shut my eyes, and let the gentleman do his work. And as he was doing the work, I felt him moving the energy around me and clearing a lot of things out. And then after I'd had that practice, I walked back up and walked outside. It was a beautiful summer's day, and for the first time since my mum had passed away, I actually felt really centered and grounded. I felt the sun on my skin, I felt the air in my lungs, and I just felt a huge sense, like a lot of, the way I could describe it, like static energy had been removed from me, and my mind was clear. Like I said, I felt really connected to where I was, and it really made a massive impact on me and made me think, wow, there's definitely something in this. And I was sure it wasn't a placebo because, like I said, I didn't know anything about it, but I felt the effects of it. And that made me more interested in life again. It kind of proved to me that it was more than just black and white, if you like. So a while later, I looked into more about Reiki than what it was. Found a person that taught it, and then went to the attunement process, which is where a Reiki Master uses certain symbols and movements and breath to change the energy of the person they're working on and allow them to connect to the Reiki in a stronger source. Everyone's slightly connected to it in general, but when you're attuned to it, it enhances it and enables you to feel it more and be able to work with it. So yeah, I did that, and like I said, it just made me a lot more interested in life again and made me feel more energized and gave me something to look into and work on, and it kind of kick-started a development and an interest in helping myself, and then also wanted to help other people, because during my life I've always felt people like to come talk to me and ask me for advice, even from when I was a young child, basically, people at school. And I thought I didn't really know what to say to people because I didn't have that much experience. But even though it wasn't a nice thing to experience with people passing away, at least I had things I could draw on and be able to empathise with and understand other people. And then people that I thought might be interested, I spoke to about Reiki, and I've worked on them, also taught a few people as well. And they have the same kind of reaction as I do with, wow, this is, it's strong, but it's subtle enough to be comfortable with. And it gets them intrigued and thinking, helps them with what they do. And it's nice because you don't have to question the person you're working on, so they don't have to reveal too much of themselves, they don't want to, but the work gets done partly through your own, you have to put yourself in that position to work with them, but then as a Reiki practitioner, you let yourself have the energy pass through you, and it goes to where it's needed, basically. There's an interesting story. I basically, after the first attunement, I was working on a lady. I didn't know anything about her, but as I was doing the work on her, my hands got drawn to where her shoulder blades were on her back, and the energy was so intense. There was so much being drawn out. My hands were boiling hot. And I tried to push my hand down to touch her back, and it felt like, when you get two magnets in the same pole and they kind of attract on each other, my hands in her back were doing that because there was so much energy. I literally squished my hand on the air and couldn't touch her back because it almost felt like it got thicker. Yeah. And then bouncing my hand on it, and that's what made me really think, this definitely does work, and it has worked. And after she told me, she was a hairdresser, so she had her arms up a lot, which is why she had the problem. So that really made me realise what it did and how it worked, because my hands literally got pulled towards where they were needed. Hands in the back were doing that. It worked. It was fantastic. So ever since then, I've kind of found comfort in knowing that there is outside energies rather than just what we can normally see and feel. And through that, I've gained an interest in meditation, which led me to join a meditation circle. And in that circle, we also learned to connect with spirits. So we could work as mediums, which wasn't something I ever thought I'd get into. But because it's part and parcel of what we were doing, I went with it. And as we learned more and more, I got bits and pieces. And then after about 4 or 5 months of doing it, this one time I was working on a person in the practice group, and I just saw everything about her uncle. I saw his life, I saw his passing, how he passed. I described it all to her, and she was like, yeah, I know exactly what you mean. And then after a while, we felt we were able to work in public. So we went out to do our first fledgling on stage work with another practice group, and a lady who ran that in a town called Redditch, just outside of Kidderminster. Yeah. And we were sat on the stage, and the people running it said, who wants to go first? Before I even had a chance to think, I was stood up. It's like someone literally lifted me up, and I looked at the crowd and said, all right, it must be me then. And I stood there. I waited to see if I was going to get anything, and I saw a lady, and she just seemed a little bit kind of clearer than everybody else. And I was like, well, that's the person I'm working with. So I stood and waited to get some information through. And all I got was when you get embarrassed and you get that really hot feeling. Yeah. All at my back. And I thought, is it stage fright? What is it? And I wasn't getting any words or pictures. I was just getting the sensation. Yeah. And then I I asked in my head, to show me something, and then I had another person come through with a message, and they were a lot clearer to see, and it was for the same lady. So I told her the message. She could accept what I said, so I sat down and let everybody else carry on having their turn. Once everyone had finished, the lady running the other group came up to me and she said, "That lady you gave the message to, you need to go and speak to her." So I said, "Okay." So as everyone was kind of, getting their coats and getting ready to leave, I went up to her and I said, "I've been told I need to speak to you." And I said, "That message I got before, I got this feeling." I told her about it. And she said, "Well, the person you gave me the message for was someone that I cared for. The person that gave you that energy was his son, who had Down syndrome and was non-verbal. So what he was giving me was his energy, his intensity and his warmth."
Oh.
And she said, you should, she had a bit of a tear in her eye, but she said, "That's really nice that he made the attempt to connect with you, to give you a message." And then that's what really made me think, well, I could not have known that ever without, prior knowledge. And the fact that I had that and that it confirmed what I was doing was right really made me truly believe that what I was doing was right. Because I know a lot of people think, oh, it's not, you can't claim to be able to speak to dead people or spirit. And sometimes it's not nice to give people hope that they can talk to people, hear from people that passed away, because it's not fair to play on those kinds of emotions. But I'm not the kind of person to lie and pull people's legs like that. And the fact I did that really gave me faith in what I was doing. And like I said, it wasn't something I intended to do, but I obviously have an ability to do. And since then, it's made me feel it's still not, it's still very hard to have someone pass away and be comfortable with that.
Yeah.
But through my learning and through understanding that, we are born and we think we have this finite life from when we're born to when we pass away. But it's been explained to me that your spirit, your soul, basically will go from body to body until it's learned enough having a human experience. And once it's learned enough, it may go on to other realms and learn other things. But it kind of gives you that feeling that even though the person you knew is gone, they're not necessarily dead and that's it. There is other places they can go to. And if they want to, they can. If they need to, more likely, they can come back and give you messages because they're not bound by our physical realm. They can see situations that have passed and situations that are going to come and a bigger picture than what we're limited to knowing. And sometimes they can give you advice or knowledge that you might not be able to have access to, but they have. And it's almost like they got a ticketing system. They know that a medium will be with that person at a certain time. So when they are there, they'll make the effort to bring their energy down, to speak through that medium, to give the person this message. So the way it's been described to me is because spirit's, spirit and not a physical thing, it's like us trying to swim through sand. It's very difficult. So they conserve their time and energy for when they really need to come and tell someone something, which is why sometimes you get someone whose parents or family member passed away and they're like, oh, I really want to hear from them. And then if you don't give them that message, they sometimes say you're not very good. And it's not the fact that you aren't very good. They just didn't need to go to speak through them because there wasn't really anything the person who could have given the message to needed to know that time.
Yeah.
So it's very difficult sometimes because when you work as a medium, people look at it like they'll go out for a night specifically to see a medium and they'll go to like psychic suppers where people have some food and have people join them and sit at a table. And sometimes you just won't have anything to tell them. And then I've had it where I had a lady, I gave her a message, but it wasn't who she wanted to hear from. So she went to the person organising the night, complained to them that I wasn't very good, after me reading off her. And I was like, I didn't feel too offended because I understood why she felt like she did. But at the same time, people don't really have it explained to them how the process works. Yeah. So they expect to just have whoever they want to hear come and tell them they love them or whatever, which is, fair enough because people want to hear that, but it's not always the case. Yeah. So you have to be careful to not let it affect you and affect your confidence, because you'll get what you're going to get, and if it's right, it's right. If it isn't, it isn't.
Yeah,
But you can't pull it out the hat on the spot and just tell people what they want. But when people are in that situation, if they're sensitive, as in quite raw to the situation, you understand that everyone wants to hear from their loved ones if they passed away. Everyone wants that one last conversation and misses them, which is a natural thing to do.
Yeah.
But it's not always going to be delivered in the way that you want it to.
Yeah.
And sometimes you have to be patient with things. And sometimes it's probably better for a person to not hear from someone who's passed away straight away, because they're starting that grieving process. It's not nice to go through, but you almost need to feel those processes. You need to go through it to process it and work out how you feel about it and how you're going to get on with your life without them.
Yeah.
And if you're looking for them to come back all the time, you're never really going to give yourself a chance to move on from it. I mean,
I've heard this. Yeah, sorry. I've heard there's a particular amount of time that you're supposed to leave from when the person dies until you can contact them, right? Like something like
yeah, say that should be a while, but then I've been told there's been people who've passed away. A guy that used to teach me to learn to be a medium, he said a couple of hours later, the person, after they passed, the spirit had come back to talk to them.
Oh, okay. Maybe just to make sure to say that they're okay, and
yeah, maybe. I don't. It's weird because it's not a specifically scientifically proven process. So you can only go through what you kind of gain knowledge from. But I'm assuming these are the kind of things that you're looking into, and you're trying to get that kind of evidence to give it a factual element to spiritual things and get people to understand more about it and be interested in it, which is I'm really glad that you're taking it upon yourself to go through this process and give people like me the chance to give their opinion and to educate people in these things, because 20-30 years ago, if I'd said that I could speak to dead people, people would probably want to lock me up, But
exactly, yeah.
Especially recently, a lot of people are taking interest in mediumship, and there's a lot of kind of like celebrity mediums that are making it in the public eye and getting, really famous from it and giving quite good messages and proving that it is a valuable thing and it is real. I mean, that's the thing I found the strangest, is being able to go and do these things and accept that it is part of our reality, because it seems so fantastical and so different from the normal physical world that we're used to living in. It's quite mind-blowing, especially when, like I said, when I was working as a medium and I had those situations. I was just as excited as they were to be able to do these things and to see that I was actually giving people that did need to hear what they needed to hear those situations and those experiences and helping them gain the knowledge that they need. And that's what I like about it, is the fact that you can give people information about situations they might not know about and give them a perspective that helps them deal with it better or react to it in a better way, and also have that comfort of knowing that the people they want to speak to have made the effort to come and talk to them again, basically.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, like I've seen people's lives literally change from just going to one psychic mediumship session, or just like a session where it's like an open, you have a big audience and there's a medium at the front, and they're just giving messages to people from the audience. And, I know a lot of people don't believe in that, but I've been to many myself, and you can tell, the real ones, because there's just things that there's no way you can know about this person. I mean, Facebook, no matter how much you research those people, it's impossible. So there's just so many of these. I mean, it's and now science is proving that everything is energy, and that our consciousness is not produced by the brain, but it comes from a higher source, like like a universal source. So it only makes sense, it's logical to know that our consciousness does continue to exist. So it's just a case of, I guess, people just learning, like just being open to this fact, because it is a scientific fact now that consciousness does exist outside of the brain. And there's just too many people who, mediums, you know, like yourself, who are doing this, and they're passing on messages that just have so much meaning, and there's just so much resonance with the actual person that there's no way you can disapprove it. So, I mean, my life has personally changed completely from just realizing that. And obviously, I, very similar to you, I had a loved one. My mum also passed away, and I, up until then, I wasn't really open to any of that. And obviously, when everything happened, I was forced to, because there was just no other way. This idea that I'm never going to see her again, that I'm never going to speak to her again, that was literally, I mean, it was eating me alive, you know. And I know with so many people, it ruins your life. It really does. And yeah, like similarly to you, I found someone, luckily I came across a really amazing teacher who's actually in my documentary that I'm making right now. And I had my first session with her, and then I was just kind of like, wow, I was gobsmacked, because just the amount of information that she relayed to me, and that was, you know, like correct, and it had so much meaning to me, and everything that she was saying was just like, wow. Yeah, it definitely opened the door for me into this whole field. But how did you take it, to just to go back to the very beginning, when everything with your mom happened? Were you open to it at all, or did you know anything about the psychic mediumship stuff or spirituality? Were you open to that?
I knew a little bit, because my mum was actually having shiatsu massage.
Oh, okay.
So that obviously takes into account elements of chakras and spirituality. So, but it also has the physical touch with the massage side of it. So I looked into that, and that kind of got me interested. But ever since I can remember, I was always interested in kind of abstract things, and like stories about witches and werewolves and all that kind of stuff. And I just found it very intriguing, and it fired my imagination. I also like to watch a lot of films about science fiction and stuff like that, and things outside of the norm. But the thing that really, looking back at it, the first personal experience I had, which was a kind of spiritual in a way, was when I was about 6 or 7. Regularly, I'd have a lot of recurring dreams of very, what I understand and think of now as quite intricate situations in different times, different places. And as a child, I don't think I would have been able to just imagine those things, but I dreamt about them. And I found a person offering past life hypnotherapy. So I went to have that, and I went down, counted down into the hypnotic state, found a place. The way it's set up, it was like a picture gallery, and as I had to choose a picture I wanted to connect with and step into it. And as soon as I went through that process and kind of realized where I was, I recognized it as not the same physical location I'd been, but the same place that I'd dreamt about.
Wow. Okay.
And I went through it, and I went through more of my life than I'd seen in my dream, but I saw the final outcome of the dream, which is basically I was probably about the same age in the dream as I was when I was having them. And I was told to not go on past the boundaries of a place where I live, but it's like when you're a kid and you get told to not do something.
You do it.
So I ignored them. I went and it was like a water wheel, a waterfall. The waterfall was turning it round, and I remember being stood on top of it and falling off it. And in my dream, I remember the falling sensation. And I think that because I was a small kid and I was in a dangerous situation, that was the end of my life then. And then when I came out of it, it kind of made me thinking those situations I'd actually dreamt about were lives that I'd led before.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
And that's what kind of added to the knowledge I was given about, that was explained to me about how souls go from body to body. And I think you have to have these experiences to look. From that lesson in that situation was listen to your parents and do what you're told, because sometimes they're doing it for a reason,
Yeah.
And then I've had another session where I went to another place that I dreamt about as well, and that really confirmed my thinking of what was going on. And so, yeah, those were situations before I'd really explored anything to do with spirituality, but it was something I'd experienced as a child. But I've heard a lot that when you're a child, because you're not brought up and given social constructs and understanding of how our physical world should be, a lot of children have imaginary friends and things like that, and a lot of people think they're spirits of people who are attracted to them that they can interact with because they haven't been taught to shut it off and naturally open to it. And I think that's probably the same with a lot of people. I mean, certain people work on being mediums and doing spiritual work, but they are literally just the same as every other person on this planet, basically. And as it was explained to me, people can do Reiki. I mean, the way it was explained to me is if you hurt yourself, if you cut your knee, the first thing you do is you put your hand on it, don't you? And that's because your hands have that energy and you instinctively want to start healing it. So everybody has these abilities to do these things, but some people don't need to get involved in them. They're not interested, or they're scared of it, because people, ghost stories and things like that, people don't like to look into things like that because it's shown as an evil, harmful thing. But unless you're really putting yourself in a situation where you're at risk from something that has been labeled as nasty or evil, connecting to spirit isn't. A lot of people worry that you're connecting to demons and things like that, which I understand the concern, but as long as you're sensible about it and you protect yourself, then there isn't really much harm in connecting to them. And if they are evil, then you disconnect from them and shut it down, and you don't let it go any further. Some people go the other way and look for things like that and try and manifest them and try and do.
Very good.
No, it's not good. I mean, but it is something that people do. But it's also useful to know that these things do exist. So then once you've experienced it, you can know if you're going to be in a similar situation again, what to do to protect yourself from it, or stop it getting any further than it needs to be. It's just people, spirituality in the grand scheme of things is mostly concentrated on specific religions.
It's the idea of what spirituality is, which is not very correct.
And everyone has, lots of cultures have a different deities and different ideas of heaven and hell, and that's been obviously that's been the main thing that people consider as spiritual. And anybody that does spiritual work but not necessarily labeling themselves as a particular religion sometimes get automatically linked to doing evil things. Which
so linked to like voodoo and witchcraft and things like that, which is people just need to learn to separate them, because that's completely different. I mean, it depends where you're coming from, whether you're doing from a place of love or from a place of that it's just for yourself and you want to But let me ask you about this. So what happened after your mom passed away, did you get a chance to actually communicate with her? How long did it take for you to?
Occasionally I'd get I'd smell her perfume in the air.
The signs.
And there was one time about a couple of years later, I think, I was walking down the road, I was thinking about her, and in my mind I told her that I missed her, and this feather, it landed almost like a stone. It didn't float, it was boom, straight in front of me on the floor, right in front of where I was walking. And I was like, I looked around, there was no birds to be seen, there was no other feathers. It was a beautiful, perfect little white feather. And that I read into it, and people said that you do get a lot of similar situations. I mean, it's giving me chills just thinking about it now, to be honest. And then occasionally I would like to hear from her. I saw a medium about 4 or 5 years ago who actually did a very poignant reading, and she said, your mum is connected to me. She's not staying away because she doesn't want to be with you, but it's almost like she knows that if she did come back, you wouldn't want to let go. So it's almost better that you don't
try
to her too much, because because you miss her so much, you're not going to want to stop it, and it's not going to be good for you or good for her to keep that link, because you're not going to move on from things, and you're going to keep wanting it, and if you experience it too much, then it won't be beneficial.
It doesn't allow you to move on. Totally.
So I've kind of had to come to terms with the fact that is how it is. I mean, I'm sure that if she needs to come back, she will, but I also get the feeling that she's generally content with where she is and where I am. And through my understanding of how the kind of processes work, I've come to terms with the fact, and also worked on just being confident and happy with being myself with what I've got. And the way I look at it is through other various situations of family passing away and things I've been through. This life has had to have these things happen for me to become who I am. And it's not, I wouldn't wish it upon anybody really, but if I hadn't had what I've had happen to me, I wouldn't have the understanding and the knowledge that I've got. And I feel that I've looked in my past lives that I've had, I think I've always had similar abilities that I have now, but they just weren't the right time to expose and use. Where this lifetime, in this age, where we can have these kinds of conversations and do these kinds of things, this is the right time for me to be really getting involved in it and doing what I should be doing, because the opportunities are there, the understanding's there. I've still got, hopefully quite a long life ahead of me to work on these things and do more with them. But it's also had to take the time it has to get here for me to really be ready, because if I'd been trying to do this with you, I know 10 odd years ago, I don't think I'd have been able to do it in such a controlled manner. It would have been too much, and I still would have been kind of very raw and sensitive about it. I mean, obviously I still have my moments where I miss her and I get upset. But through my learning and through generally growing up, I've learned to be able to do this in a way that is constructive. And also when I'm doing things like my counselling work, I'm able to still be warm enough to them for them to be comfortable, but also have that clinical, professional demeanour and frame of mind that you need to be able to work in those kinds of spaces.
Totally.
And then through the NLP and through the Reiki, I've learned both sides of the spiritual connection, but also the crossover between the spiritual and the practical way of working as well, which I think is giving me quite a rounded point of view on things. And especially, I'd say these last 6 months, I've really worked on really eliminating a lot of things that were issues for me in the past, and I've left myself a lot of mental space and a lot more energy to work on these things. And just that's why I took advantage of the fact when I saw the post you put up about what you were doing, my automatic reaction was, yes, I want to get involved with that. And here we are. So I'm glad that I'm having these opportunities and meeting people like you and seeing people who are having similar experiences, and I'm assuming around the same age, that are realizing that we need to use what we've got to help teach other people and potentially help other people through difficult situations.
Definitely. No, you're right. And I agree that it definitely doesn't take away the pain of the loss of the person, your loved one, but just the idea that they haven't just disappeared into thin air, because that's what the majority of us believe, right? That's the materialistic view, that once you're dead, it's like poof, you're just gone, that's it, like you're never going to see that person again. That idea is so painful just to even think about, let alone live through, when someone's actually died in your own family or your friend, or or a pet even. I mean, I work in a place that deals a lot with does a lot of psychic mediumship classes and courses, and so many times I've had people call, and the first of all, a lot of them literally crying down the phone. They're crying on the phone, and they're like, I don't know why I'm calling you, I never believed in the afterlife, but my dog's just died, my dad's just died, and I don't know who else to call. And you just think, out of all the places that you can possibly reach out to, this is the place that you call, because people know when it comes to the actual moment of the loss and you're going through it, you know, there's something in you that just knows that this is not it, that there's something in you that just knows. So it's that, and I guess that was it kind of happened the same for me, you know. I knew that there was something more. I just couldn't accept the fact that the idea that that's it, I'm never going to see this person again, I'm never going to ever see them again or hear from them again, you know. So I think there's something, that inner knowing, that's making us search for this kind of other reality that's leading us. Yeah,
that's what I was the kind of point I was trying to make. Not everybody should have to go that in depth into learning to do the things that I've done, and things we've experienced, but I think it would be beneficial if people did just, you know, they didn't have to necessarily use it, but just maybe attune themselves to higher levels of energy and things like Reiki and spiritual healing, just to have that knowledge and that insight. Because if you had a group of people, I think I'm sure you've seen it, where you have a lot of people who have psychic or spiritual connections and energies, and there is no conflict, there's no real judgment, and it's not because everyone's happy clappy hippies, they are just happy to be with each other, you know what I mean?
yeah.
And if ever you could teach that to people, to just be happy and to be able to go up to somebody and just realize they don't need to be scared, they don't need to be really worried about what they say and what they do. If not, people are nice to each other, then people can be comfortable with opening up and just communicate. And I think that's the major issue. You know, we have things like this, you know, the internet, we can talk to people miles away, yet people don't talk to each other anymore as much as they used to. And the sense of community in general seems to deteriorate, and people have seen strangers to each other. And even though, you know, I live in a block of flats, and the people I live next to, they might say hi to me when I'm walking past, but they're so involved in just what they want to do, that they don't really seem like they want to actually go out of their way to make friends with you and help each other and stuff like that. And it's, as a person that has the knowledge that I have and other people have with this open-mindedness, it's quite a dichotomy, because half of you wants to try and go and help as many people as you can and see people help each other, but then you see the ignorance and the increasing harm that people give to each other, and you think, should I bother or should I just leave it? Because it seems like it becomes so much more of a bigger job to do every day, that you're screaming inside for people to just be nice to each other, but then also you're thinking, maybe I should just join them and just live in my own little world and just please myself. But if you're naturally inclined to help people, you never really do that. You never become that kind of selfish, because it's just not your way. But it almost seems it's great that there is growing communities of people with spiritual and caring intent, and this really needs to grow, and things like your documentary really need the support that it should have to let people know that people want to do this and increase this message nationally and internationally, because there's so many people that I'm sure have similar points of view, but just don't know that people there around them or outside of their what they know exist, and that things like this are possible. So I'm glad that these things are happening, but I just think it needs a lot more support.
It definitely does. Yeah, I completely agree. And even outside of the death, you know, theme, just personally connecting with this kind of the non-physical reality. And I don't like to call it spiritual because it's got such a stigma to it. But, you know, just learning about the non-physical reality and how the energy influences us. Because even, again, with science, it's scientifically proven that we can only see 5% of the spectrum light spectrum, which means that 95% of what's out there we can't actually see. So again, how do we know what's influencing us? We can only see 5% of that. So for me personally, learning about that has been so mind-opening, and just learning how other people's energies are influencing me, how the energy in a place is influencing me, how an environment is influencing me. That's just so, it's pure wisdom, that you can use to improve your own life and yourself and your sort of physical, mental, emotional sort of bodies. So it has such a huge, so many benefits. So like you said, definitely we should open up more to that.
Well, I saw a thing the other day. I'm not sure how legitimate it is, but they took a photo of the moment when a sperm and an egg connected, and there's
I saw that.
that flash of light, and I was like, that really does make sense to me. I do think that, well, my understanding with like Reiki is it's electromagnetic energy, and I think electromagnetism is a large part of the driving force behind a lot of things.
Yeah.
And I think it carries the consciousness, and that's why, that we say when people pass away that they actually become lighter because something inside them has left their body. And I think that is how a spirit travels to the, I think it travels on a certain frequency, and then once it gets that frequency, because it's lighter, I'm intrigued because if you think about it, when you have a spirit interacting with a medium or a person and showing them consciousness and understanding of a situation, that means that there must be part of the personality of that person and their humanity, if we like, that sticks with them to enable them to carry on like in a certain manner. They are still that person.
Yeah totally.
So I think that is something that I would like to know more about, is which part of us as a person is transferable, if you like, through the spirit.
Yeah, because we only really take away our consciousness, our emotions, our memories with us. Everything else physical kind of dies. But then we have our memories, we have our consciousness, we have our everything else that we've kind of experienced throughout our life. But let me ask you this: what's been what's kind of the biggest thing that you've learned since learning about life after death? What has it taught you anything about life? Just learning about life after death from speaking to spirits. Like, what have you learned anything from speaking to people who have passed?
It's taught me that when people say that I'm just trying to, there's a lot of things I'm trying to filter it through. Basically, a lot of people think that if you act in a certain way as a human being, then you're judged and you're either punished or rewarded. But the way that I see it is that if you make mistakes or maybe do things that aren't necessarily beneficial to people, I don't think you'll just get stuck in a certain place. I think from the way it's been described to me is that you might come back and have another chance of being a human. I think that you do carry, people talk about, knowledge through DNA, through family, but I also think that you do bring back knowledge of things from the past.
For me personally, I feel like it's not until I started learning about death that I really started to learn more about life and what life is really about. Because like you were saying, speaking with people, communicating. I mean, so many times I've sat in class where our teacher communicating with a spirit, right? And they'll be passing on messages from a spirit to the class, or to someone specific from the class who maybe is related to the spirit who's passed away. And just the wisdom that comes from them, you just learn so much. And one of the most shocking things for me was to find out just how many regrets people die with. They have so many regrets and so much guilt of the things that they didn't do, or the things that they did do and they regret and they wish they can take back. And these are really the things that people, I guess, take away with them when they die, right? It's kind of like, they don't think about their money. Well, some do. Some are still kind of worried about their house and things like that. But
Yeah.
most of the times it's very emotional things, like I wish I told my husband or my wife I love you more, or I wish I spend more time with my daughter and things like that. And it's just, it really makes you put things into perspective when you're communicating with these spirits, and it's like, wow, you really do see what's really important in life when that.
Yeah, and sometimes it's difficult because when you have a lot of awareness, you have to learn to respect and honor the things that you can do, and also respect spirit if they want to give you a message, to, if you can, to pass on what's needed to be said. But you also need to be able to sometimes focus on the things you need to do to get on with life, because otherwise you could get so overwhelmed by all the things that you could do that you don't actually get on with things that you should be doing. And that's where you have to find the balance of, you have to be able to say, right, today I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to do that after. And if I get a message, then you have to judge, especially if it's someone that you don't know. Like, so I get things quite a lot in public. I'll get something about someone, and you kind of think, should I go up to them and tell them I have this knowledge, because they should know it? But if I do, are they just going to look at me like I'm crazy, or get upset because it's not something they've asked for?
Yeah.
I mean, I've sat in a restaurant. I saw this one time, this guy was sat there, and I could see in spirit his wife's opposite him. And I knew that that was something that they did regularly. They went to that place and they sat at that table, and you could see him missing her.
Oh.
And it nearly broke my heart. I was like, I really wanted to go up to her and say, your wife is still with you, and she says this. But I was like, it didn't seem appropriate. So
Yeah, it's like, do you say it? Do you know?
yeah, and
Yeah.
I undernod, and he went to leave, and I couldn't not tell him. So I went up to him as he was leaving. I said, excuse me, sorry if this sounds crazy, but this is what I've been told. And he kind of looked at me. You could see he was a bit unsure, but then eventually you could kind of see he said that he didn't really understand, but I couldn't kind of told that he could. So, and I was like, it was up to him how he wanted to react to it, but I had to do it, otherwise I'd have regretted it and thought, what if I had, what if I hadn't?
Yeah.
And that's a weird situation to be in sometimes, because you don't want to upset people, because he might not want to know about it, but at the same time, if someone has made the effort to give you that message, you kind of feel that you should.
Exactly.
Because from knowing how difficult it is sometimes for them to get to a medium to give the message, and the effort they have to put into it and the energy they have to use,
Exactly.
you feel that if you don't, that they've wasted their time and that you're kind of disrespecting them.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Yeah. Has that happened to you a lot, when you're kind of just walking around, just doing your thing during the day, and all of a sudden you see someone and their loved one behind them just following them, or
Or you get someone that wants to tell you something and go, oh, can you, like, they'll be kind of commenting on the situation. There was a situation where there's a group of people, and there was a person that was part of their friends group in spirit, and she didn't, this lady, the spirit, didn't like one of the people in the group.
Oh.
And the person in the group was very vocal about their opinion on things, and some of the things this lady was saying, she was really like kind of reading between the lines and telling me the truth. And I was sat there and I was trying not to crack up, because some of the stuff she was coming out with was unbelievable.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like she didn't want me to tell them. She just wanted to let someone know that this person wasn't quite how they appeared.
Oh, wow.
And it's almost like she'd regretted not saying it in life. So because she had someone she could tell that that's the thing I find is, when you're able to connect to spirit, it's like you shine to people in spirit, and they say, he can interact with me, I can tell him things, and he'll listen to me. And I think that's a very human thing. Just there may be things they've been wanting to say forever, but not being able to, and suddenly there's someone that can hear them or be aware of them, so they come flocking around and go, to tell you all the stuff because they
Yeah.
wanted someone to talk to and someone to interact with them. And I think that's probably one of the strangest things of becoming, where whatever it is you become when you pass away, is that sudden, unless you've maybe had time to prepare for your death or knowing that it's coming because of an illness or whatever, if it's quite sudden, I think it's probably a bit of a shock, because if you've still got your human consciousness and I don't know if you feel like you've fallen asleep and wake up, but if you end up in a different place as a spirit and you look at yourself and go, it's probably as shocking as it is for a person who's passed, and as well as the people who've missed them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, I can totally. I remember just in so many of the classes, when my teacher or someone from the group would communicate again with like a spirit, and you can just feel their excitement for finally being able to speak to someone. Because I mean, just imagine they're there and they have no one to speak to, they have no one to listen to them, and finally it's like, okay, there's the person who can actually communicate with me. And I found that really, really, like, for me, it was really surprising. But also it made me feel quite sorry for them, because it's like they're just kind of just waiting to be heard, just waiting to be noticed. And because the majority of us are not tuned into this sort of reality or energy, we're completely oblivious to them, and then they're just kind of there, just waiting to like be heard by someone. How can they tell that they can speak to you? Is there some sort of an energy, or they can pick up in your field that they know they can actually speak to you and communicate with you?
I think so. I think it is the energy and the fact that I think they can feel that if a person's got that energy about them and have communicated with spirit before, I think that it's almost like there's like a signal that's saying this person will interact with you. There's a lot of things I theorize on, but it might sound obvious, but I don't think there's things we're going to know until we have that experience. And I think when we do get there and we see it, we go, oh, right, that's how it works.
Yeah.
But I think that because of the, like, people have auras and you can tell what color their aura is and things like that. I think the things on that level are, like you said, about things being more visible. Maybe when spirit are looking at people, those elements of energy are visible to them, so they can see it and see a pathway or a connection between themselves and the person who's doing the work.
Yeah. No, it's definitely, God, I'd love to just for a minute be able to see how they see the world, because I guess everything is like energy based, or I have an idea from everything that I've kind of seen and heard. But yeah, it's definitely a very interesting world. But another question, what are some of the people who come, because do you do private readings for people? Do you do?
I have done, yeah.
You do? Okay. And what are the type of people that normally come to you? Are they kind of like skeptical, or are they already into this? Are they quite far down the line? And
it's a bit of a mix of both. You get some people that are really wanting to hear from someone. You got some people that are open to it but don't necessarily have experience of it before, and you get some people that will just sit there already looking kind of unhappy with their arms crossed, like they're kind of like challenging you, and they'll sit there and they some people don't seem to understand. You don't want people to tell you everything, because there is things that you want to be able to tell them to prove that you're getting information from the source. But you need a bit of interaction. You need someone to at least say yes or no to questions or think you're saying to them, to kind of build like a cycle of energy up, so you get more of a connection. And then when you get the people just sat there, closed off with their arms crossed, kind of looking at you like, go on then, with that attitude, it makes it more difficult, because if they're not willing to give anything, then it's difficult for them to receive anything. And it's not like you can sit there and have the conversation like I'm having with you about explaining about how it works. You've got seconds literally to start telling them stuff that they want to hear. And like I said, if you don't, then sometimes they'll just say that you're rubbish and give you a bad reputation.
but it's not necessarily that. There's nothing for them to hear, or if they're not giving anything, then there's a weak connection, and you can't give a decent reading because there is nothing to work with.
Yeah.
Because it's not like, I think, we create our own thoughts and have conscious conversation, but what I've felt when I receive messages is I get the information, like you said, from a higher source. I feel it goes kind of into the back of my brain, and I'm aware it's there, and then I talk about it. It's not like your conscious brain where your thoughts appear like in the front of your head. It comes from somewhere else. So you need to have a bit of energy to push it, because you're not making it happen. You're acting as a vessel for it. It needs some information, like withdrawal, some energy to pull it through, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Otherwise it just gets stuck there, or it just disappears. And if the spirit makes the effort to talk to someone and there's no interaction, I mean, I've had it where I've sat in groups and we've connected to a spirit, received a message, and then we take it in turns to explain what we received. And if you're one of the last people out of like 4 or 5 or maybe more people to give your message, sometimes you can always feel it fading. You still have that knowledge, but the connection starts to dwindle because there's only so much energy that they have that they can give.
Yeah.
So after like maybe 10 minutes of waiting to really talk and carry on, they've just either decided, or they got bored and left, or they've just run out of energy and power to keep the connection, and then it just fades. So the same with, and I find with energy work as well, even though you're not directly making things happen, there's only a certain amount of energy that you have to put towards it and that they have to put towards it. And if you've been doing a lot of work, I mean, sometimes you can keep going, but once you close down and you stop doing the work, you feel absolutely exhausted. And it's not like exhaustion from when you've been doing a lot of studying or physical exercise. It's just you just literally feel kind of emptier in a way, because whatever energy that you've put into it has been used. And I think that's another thing that I'd like to know more about, is what energy it is from a person that is used in those situations, because a lot of people say they have a similar kind of sensation, they can understand it, and some people call it like a psychic hangover. I know people that do ghost hunting, and they go and they kind of connecting to spirit, but also working as a host, so they have to have a professional edge. But then they'll stop, and then like the day after, they'll just feel wiped out because all their energy has been gone. I mean, they recover from it eventually, but it takes a while to kind of get back to normal again.
Yeah, you can definitely see it in sessions like where I've been with a sort of, say, a psychic. You have a psychic medium who's passing on messages to people from the audience, and in the beginning they start very energized and very fresh, and then you can kind of, and you can see it just, the energy just goes down, and in the end they're like, okay guys, we have to wrap up, because you can see the energy is just depleted. Yeah,
that's the thing. There's no point trying to, because then you end up trying to make things happen, and if it's not going to work, it's not going to work. And that's one thing I actually wanted to talk to you about, was when you're learning to do this kind of work, once you kind of had a little kind of look into it, you kind of want it to happen more, but you have to work at it, but also not try and overthink it and get in the way as well. Which is something that's quite difficult to learn.
You mentioned in your forum about letting it happen rather than making it happen. So
because sometimes you can try and you'll end up getting less than you would if you didn't, because you're putting even though it's your head the information's going through, it's not your thoughts that are making it happen. And it's being able to kind of compartmentalize your brain into things that you're actually receiving from spirit, and things that your instincts or ego are trying to make be real, because that's normally how your brain works, isn't it? You choose, if you're of full mental capacity, you choose how you think about things and how you react to stuff. So when you're doing this kind of work, you're still trying to do the same thing, but it's not necessarily you that is making it happen. You're letting the spirit come through you and using your body to communicate it, but it is a separate entity. And that's what I think a lot of people have difficulty with, is almost not being completely out of control, but being in enough control to keep yourself together, but also giving that path and space for the energy to come through to give the message you need. Because you can go to someone and your conscious mind will form opinions of them.
Yeah.
And you may think, right, well, they do this or they do that and they want to hear this. And to begin with, you try and add to it because you think that it's the right thing to do, but it ends up stopping the actual proper message coming through because that's not right. And so you have to learn to be able to still interact with them as a human being and do the entertainment part of it, but then also let the energy flow as well. And that's what I was saying, you know, and like I said in the form as well, about entertainment as mediumship, because people go out, they want a night out, they want to hear from someone they miss, and they want to be satisfied that they've had that. And it's not like when you go to a film or a show where you're guaranteed to know that you're going to be entertained and you're going to get what you want. But because, you know, it's scripted and it's planned and it, you know, you kind of know what you're expecting. You've already seen the trailer or you've got an inkling of what's going to happen, and it satisfies your thoughts in that way. But when you go to a medium, there's no guarantee you're going to get what you want. And some people leave feeling kind of like they've been cheated out of money or, you know, because they haven't got what they wanted. And again, that comes to give is a medium, you get a reputation because you might not be able to have something to give everyone. And like you said, you might do it for a while and then you might get to, you know, run out of energy and have to wrap it up. And then you'll still get people sat there who've been all night waiting to hear something and they don't get it. And then they're like, oh, that was rubbish, wasn't it? And it's not because of the medium's fault. It's not like they've chosen to act that way. They've just done what they've been able to do. And it's better if you want to have integrity, it's better to say I have nothing to give you rather than try and make something up just to please them, because it's, you know, it isn't the point of what you're trying to do.
Not the real message from the person. And how can you tell when there is a spirit next to you? Like, do you feel different?
I get all day to day, especially I get a kind of really tingly pins and needles kind of feeling on my head.
Oh, okay.
And I also get a lot of like the sensation of coldness of a person next to me. And also I get their physical feelings. Like if someone's, say, died of a heart attack, I might feel the pain in my chest, or if they've broken something, then I'll feel where the break was. And I find it's quite a useful tool to have, because you can say that to someone and they can, you know, it's quite specific. So it's easier for the person you're giving the reading to agree and understand what you're saying, because they go, yes, he had that, or yes, he did have that, or he was like that. And the weirdest thing I find is if you get people that have maybe passed away of a terminal illness and during the last few days of their lives were given, say, like strong painkillers to make it as easy as possible, I find I get a really weird foggy feeling in my head, like I'm on those kinds of painkillers. So it's difficult. Sometimes you have to work out to discern whether it is the sensation that they're giving to you so you can understand how it felt, or whether it is something that is physically happening to yourself because of, say, lack of energy or something like that. But one thing that's been really reiterated to me is, you can have these feelings and sensations, but you can still kind of dictate how you get them. If you say someone has had a heart attack and you get a pain in your chest, you can say, thank you for showing me that, but can you stop that now, because I've got it, I don't need it. And if they're understanding of it, it'll just go, and then you can get on with it. But then sometimes with the head thing, because you're feeling like they were, you almost forget that you have that control, because it kind of feels a little bit too much sometimes. And that's what you have to learn, is those kind of that kind of rigid control of the situation, not necessarily where you're controlling the whole thing, but getting the spirit to respect the fact that if they want you to use you to give the message, they need to let you be able to do that. Otherwise it just the message doesn't come through because you're so busy feeling something that, you know, fair enough, you understand they want you to feel it because they want you to understand, but they also need to be able to bring it back to the point in hand and go, right, now I've made you feel that, I've given that as evidence, that means the person that I'm talking to does know who I've got, and then you can carry on with the link. And once you've got that link and that understanding, it tends to flow a lot more because it's kind of like you've broken the ice. The person knows. I find the person knowing and accepting that you have that person giving the message kind of like opens the floodgates.
It
and
opens
once,
them up. Totally. Yeah.
Once you've done that, then you can carry on with it. And it's fine. The challenge after that is finding the way to display and convey what you've got to the person you're talking to in a controlled manner, because suddenly once you've got that information, then you can start telling them stuff. And I don't know if you've heard what people call psychic amnesia. You can be telling someone something that is right, and they might be with a friend, and the person you're giving the message to is like, no, don't know who you got. And the friend is like, it's him. And they're just completely adamant that they do not know who you're on about. But then they'll like leave the situation, and a few hours later go, oh yeah. And then they get it. And I've had that, and the people have come back to me and said, oh, I wasn't able to accept it, but now I know who you're on about, and you were right.
It takes a while to click.
It's a weird situation because it's not like they're being ignorant, but just something just doesn't quite work, and then it dawns on them.
Yeah, that's definitely a challenge, and I think it's just a challenging altogether for people for us to understand how that world works, because it's not physical anymore, you know, so they can't exactly speak to you. They're communicating with you through their mind, you know, telepathically, through feelings, and it's a completely different language. It's like learning a brand new language that you've never known before, you know, so it's definitely a skill that needs to be developed.
I wanted to ask, with your going back to the experience of people passing away and that whole process, do you think that it's more important for people to be able to believe that people go somewhere else, or do you think for some people it's better to think that that person's gone and that's it? Because it can, what we were saying before about waiting to have a message from someone and hearing from them to help you move on with things, do you think some people are better off just kind of in their head going, right, that's it, it's over, so they can get on with it? Or do you think everybody should have that ability to get another message if they wanted to?
Oh God, I mean, I'm very subjective in saying that because from my own experience, but I think that it's from everything that I've seen and from all the people who I've met who've gone into this and, you know, gone to see a psychic medium for a loved one, I found that it's always beneficial for them to, because it's almost like you get that closure, you know, because there's always things that have been left unsaid. In very rare cases, which I've never met before, but I'm sure there are a few where people have died and they've you know, they've said everything that they wanted to say. They have no regrets. But in the majority of cases, people do have a lot of unsaid things that, you know, either the loved ones who are still here are going over, and, you know, it's blocking them from living their life properly because they have all these regrets, this guilt of these things that they should have said or they didn't say, or the things that they didn't say and they should have said. And it's just, I've never met anyone who's said, no, I think I don't want to have any communication. I don't want to, you know, I'm fine with knowing that they're never gonna, I'm never gonna see them again. Yeah, I think because everyone wants to have that reassurance, isn't it, that their loved one still is in a way existing in some way, shape or form.
Yeah, and as long as it's ethically all right for them. Because the thing that came to mind is, do you know the magicians Penn and Teller?
No.
Well, basically they do a lot of obviously stage magic, And they're very much advocates of proving things. You know, their job is to trick people, basically, obviously with magic, but they're very much they did a show about things like mediumship and proving whether it's real or not. And basically his point was he didn't think that it was right at all for anybody to be able to claim to speak to someone who'd passed away and give a message to someone, because they were like, well, no, because you're just playing on their emotions and on their desperation to hear from someone that's passed. And I think you do get people like that who are like very, you know, the physical world, and that is it, black and white, and once someone's gone, they're gone. But like you said, if someone had the opportunity to speak to someone that they passed away, that they missed, then they would probably take it, wouldn't they? Because like you said, even if people claim to not believe in it, there's that instinctual knowledge that they can, and like you said before about them contacting people out of the blue because they don't know, but they think that they will be able to hear from them again or communicate with them again. But yeah, at the same time, you don't, if you're ethically and morally upstanding, then you wouldn't take advantage of people in those situations anyway, really, would you?
Oh no. Well, that was one of the questions I wanted to ask, you know, because obviously there are people out there who I'm guessing are doing this just for the money and are not actually real mediums. So, which is really, I mean, your moral compass has to be so off the charts to be able to do that, because you're playing with people's feelings. Yeah, like you said. So what if someone watching, for example, was thinking of going to a psychic medium to maybe communicate or get a message from their loved one who's died? What do you say is a good way to judge whether someone's good or not, or whether someone's real or not? A real medium.
I think the only way you can really do it is research them, look at their Facebook page. You know, now there's social media and things which people can comment on and review on. You can do quite a lot of research into the skills a person has and the reputation they have quite easily. So maybe look for like events like spiritual fairs or nights of mediumship with certain people, because a venue would put on an event with a certain medium. They want to fill seats and make money, basically. They want to get an audience in. So if they're willing to put a person on, then it's almost safe to assume that that person who's working has a good reputation, that the venue's relying on attracting a large crowd of people. So if they're working somewhere that's quite popular, then that's a good sign, hopefully, that they are a person that's worthwhile looking to, because they've got a good reputation, and you only get a good reputation from being good at what you do and people talking about you or giving good reviews. But yet again, you could have someone that has had a reading that thought, yeah, that was great and really enjoyed the night. But then you could have the person that's been sat there till the end of the night and not got anything, that might turn around and give them a 1 or 0 out of whatever because they didn't get what they wanted. So you have to look at, you know, with things like TripAdvisor and Yelp, people are quite willing to give their opinion on things they've experienced to let other people kind of get knowledge of how it is. And with social media, there's a lot of things you can look at and see what people said about them, basically. I don't really think there's any kind of particular like directory or information base regarding mediums. I know there is for therapists and things like that, but not for people who do mediumship work. But maybe that's something that would be useful, especially if it's growing.
Yeah, exactly. And more people are kind of opening up to this, you know, psychic abilities and everything, because from what I've seen, also, you know, everyone can really everyone does have psychic abilities. It's just they're not developed. So I think,
and also, if you develop your spiritual understanding, then you'll be comfortable to go with, well, I'll go where I need to be. You'll get drawn to where you need to go or who you need to go to, because the energies around it will create that situation for that to happen.
Yeah, totally. Yes, definitely. Well, right, David, thank you so much. Do you have any last words for anyone watching, and kind of, who's still on the fence about how much they believe in this or not, or whether they actually want to communicate with anyone who's died in their family?
Well, like I said, in the questions when you said about what people should learn, and I said about just basic meditation. I think that's something that people can do that doesn't necessarily have to have any weird aspect to it with regards to connection to spirit, but it's something that I think people should do because it's good to just be able to calm your mind down from thinking about everything that's going on in the world and focus on yourself and be able to just have, even if it's like half an hour a day, just some time out to just be happy with being where they are and what they're doing. Because that can lead to further knowledge and spiritual connections through meditation, which is something people can go down the path of if they choose to. But you can either have someone teach you, or you can look at things on YouTube these days and have guided meditations. And just people should, I think, would just benefit from just having a little bit of peace and calm in their mind for a bit of the day whenever they feel they can. Just like I said, to bring the focus to their present rather than missing people or worrying about things in the past or stressing about the future, and just concentrate on where you are now. Because like we were saying before, you realize that life is, as this lifetime isn't a very long time and there's a lot to do. So try and concentrate on calming down and focusing on things you can do rather than worrying about everything else and not really getting on with what you should be doing. And just appreciate that aspect of it and be able to take yourself out of things, because it will also help you potentially have a better understanding of stuff because you're taking that outside perspective rather than being right in the middle of all of it.
Yeah, totally.
I think that's something that a lot of people could benefit from.
Yes, I definitely agree. And what about anyone who might be going through grief or trying to deal with a loss? What's your advice to people who are...
If you can, try and make the effort to go and speak to someone about it. Because what I find is when you're in that situation, you can feel so lonely that you can start to believe that there is no way out of how you're feeling at the time. And that can make things even worse because you can become isolated, you can become more depressed, and it won't help you go through the process. It's not nice to go through, but you have to feel it, but you don't have to feel it forever as intensely. You can move on with things and you can enjoy things again and feel stimulated and intrigued with stuff. Because I find that's the most difficult thing, is it takes away your motivation and your kind of energy and feeling to move on. And that's why I was glad to find Reiki, because that kind of, like I said, reignited things. Not some people maybe should go and try Reiki. It's gentle, it's not invasive, but it gives you that boost of energy that you need. Or if not, just go and there's plenty of free counselling organisations, either over the phone or face-to-face meetings you can have, which will give you the chance to talk through things and have someone, just knowing that you have someone to listen, that will listen to you without judging, can be very beneficial. And then if you do want to look into having a medium do a reading for you, then maybe go to something like a night where someone's working, not necessarily to be sure, hopefully if you get a message, you get a message, but if not, it's good to at least see how the situation works to get a bit of understanding of what to expect and to see how people react to it. And then if you really want to have a real strong attempt at connecting to someone, then you can go and see a one-to-one reader and maybe have them do that. But
yes,
just try and make the effort to keep things going. And even if it's only for a few minutes a day, if you're feeling stuck, like maybe stuck in the house and not wanting to go out, just try and make the effort to, maybe just go and stand outside first before you do anything. Don't go too far out of your comfort zone, but make that transition from being stuck inside to being outside, and I feel you have to gently lower yourself back into interacting with the world with that knowledge that that person isn't there anymore. But just make the effort to try, because if you don't, then you can end up people tend to, even if they're not in a good place, because eventually it becomes familiar, they stay there because any kind of change feels scary. So if you can introduce that concept of changing things before you really get into the frame of mind that you're better staying where you are, then you have a chance of moving on, not necessarily more quickly, but in a healthier way, I think.
Yeah.
Because that's one thing that I did. I mean, I still got up and went to work. I didn't really feel like I was there. My mind was elsewhere, but I still made the effort to go and do it. And eventually, after a while, I felt more connected and I felt more myself again. And I kind of felt I had to reevaluate what I wanted to do. And I'm glad that I still do some things that I did before my mum passed away. Didn't necessarily do everything, but I find it's a very defining moment, like the day before and the day after. I don't know if it's the same for everyone, but I felt like a very different person. And I felt I had to reevaluate what I wanted to do and find what I was passionate about and put the effort into doing that, because you can just become so kind of jaded by stuff because you're just so like apathetic towards things because of the lack of, I think it's just your body just response to shock. You just kind of shut down to stop you going too far one way or the other. But eventually it's good to make the effort to reconnect with things again, because if you're going to carry on living your life, then you might as well try and make it as good as it can be.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I guess it's just giving yourself the time and the space to grieve, you know, because you do have to get through that stage, I guess. No matter what you do, whether you distract yourself with work, you still have to go through that. That was definitely the case for me. But for me, just reconnecting with that spiritual side of life definitely changed.
And the way I look at it is, well, if you want to use me in this example, I've completely gone the other way, and I've gone out of my way to develop myself and learn these things and better myself and become someone that I feel can be useful and help people, because I have been through that experience and I have felt it and I have got over it, and now I have that point of view. And if anyone does want to talk to me, then obviously feel free, because hopefully from what people have heard, that you'll realize that there are people like us and other people that have these experiences and have turned them into something positive and do want to help other people, because we appreciate what it's like to be there, and we know that it's not nice to stay there, and we've found a way, luckily I suppose, and through some effort, to change and grow with it. And other people can do the same, really.
Yes, I completely agree. And people can find you at do.therapies.
That's the Facebook.
Your Facebook, and your email do.therapy@gmail.com. So if anyone wants to get in touch, and you're in Worcester, was that?
Kidderminster in Worcestershire.
Worcestershire. That's it. So great, David, thank you so much for your time. This was
That's right, it's been good.
Insightful. And it's just so nice to have this discussion like openly, because again, it's just something that people don't really talk about, and yes, we like to brush it under the carpet because it's not a pleasant conversation to have, but it's just I find it so important. And I know I've seen a lot of people's life change from kind of looking more into this and developing the understanding of the afterlife and death, and not even, I mean, just being open about grief in general, and just being able to connect with other people who have also gone through it and have sort of a different perspective on that. Thank you so much. And guys, for anyone who wants to donate to the fundraiser for the documentary Beyond the Veil that I'm working on, the link is in the comment section of the video, so please share, like, and donate if you can, support in any way that you can. And we'll be doing this again soon, within the next week, so just follow the Bridging the Realm page or Beyond the Veil, and you'll be updated on all the new events that are happening. So thank you so much. And David, again, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. I'll see you soon.